to School Britannia, the podcast where two Aussies teach Brits their own history. This is my friend Ellie.
And this is my friend Claire.
Hey Ellie.
Hi Claire.
How you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
What have you been up to lately?
Well, my mum is visiting me. Super fan of the podcast, Chris Gorn.
Oh, what an honour.
It's been wonderful. And we went to the National Museum of Scotland here in Edinburgh.
Did you? What did you see?
So many cool history things that we have learnt about.
Really?
Yeah.
What kind of things?
I saw a printing press from the 1850s.
My goodness.
I know. It was amazing.
Yes.
And I saw a model of the Bell Rock Lighthouse, which was incredible. It was a model of the construction. So they had the little extra bit on the side that they built to live in while they were building it.
What?
Yeah, it was amazing. And then I got to see an actual light from an old-timey lighthouse. I don't know when that was from.
Oh.
Yeah.
It's a dream. You were just living the dream.
Absolutely. It was great.
So good.
Yeah, it was really fun. It's nice to get some local culture.
Yeah, there's some fantastic stuff on at the museum all
Yes.
the time. Like their permanent collection's really cool.
It's really fun. Yeah.
Do you have any podcast recommendations while I've gotcha?
I do. I've been listening to a cracking podcast called Bibliophile.
Ooh.
It's a book podcast by independent booksellers. That's their tagline.
Groovy.
It's Golden Hair Books, which is a bookshop here in Edinburgh, in Stockbridge.
It's the most glorious bookshop in the entire world.
I bought your Christmas present from there last year.
Oh,
yeah.
I love that. Is that the Poems of Scotland?
Yeah.
Oh, it's
yeah,
so
that was
lovely.
from there. It's a gorgeous shop, and they had this great little podcast, and it just felt like sitting in a room with some friends talking about books.
Perfect.
It was so nice, and I liked it because I don't like listening to book reviews of books I haven't read when they go really in depth.
Yeah.
But this was just like, they just chatted about a whole bunch of different books and the Booker Prize, and it was great. And they're just really funny, and it was awesome. They don't put it out a lot, but when it's there, it's so worth the time.
Gold.
Yeah. Oh, that was great.
Perfect.
I love it.
So, what will you be teaching us about today, Claire?
Well, I was inspired by you, Ellie.
Me?
And was then in turn inspired by recent events.
Recent events?
Back into history.
Great.
To see how we have gotten to where we are today.
Oh my god, I love these ones. Okay, give it to me.
So, I'm going to talk to you about youth strikes.
Youth strikes?
Yeah.
Wow, striking youths.
Yes.
Yes.
Turns out children been striking since forever.
Really?
Yeah. Yes.
All right.
It runs deep. So, the first incident of youth striking about youth issues was in 1889.
Wow.
In East London.
Okay.
Does that sound familiar to you?
1889 in East London.
Yes.
Jack the Ripper? No.
Oh god, poor children. No, it was only a year after the Match Girl strikes of last episode.
Oh,
Yeah.
of course.
Which, there's a connection between our Match Girls getting their union on and the youths getting rowdy.
People getting empowered?
Exactly.
With unions?
Yes. So, because the Match Girl strikes inspired all of this unionisation of unskilled labour, there was a bunch of docker strikes.
Oh, yes.
The ones that close the Thames.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so the children of these dock workers were particularly inspired and initiated walkouts from classrooms, protesting corporal punishment and long classroom hours.
Good on them.
Yeah.
That's
I
fantastic.
know. It's so cool.
Did they have a name for their strike?
No, they weren't quite as organised as the kids of today.
Cut that.
No, it's a good point though. So it started with these working class kids and they walked out from their classrooms carrying banners that said things like no cane, shorter hours and no home lessons.
Great.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with all these things.
No more homework.
Yeah. But the strike spread across London to schools of all social classes. And on the 10th of October, the London correspondent of the Melbourne Argus wrote, "The children attending a dozen board and other schools in London have left school. They demand that the school hours shall be shorter, that home lessons shall be abolished, and that there shall be more holidays. They are intimidating those who continue to attend schools."
Oh gosh, they're bullying the other students.
Yeah, they straight up did that. Today, 500 children marched through the streets in a procession with banners flying, some of them having been driven in by their parents or by neighbours. Yeah,
Wow.
so it seems their striking parents were really chill with their striking children.
Look, runs in the family.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so the strike spread across the country with reports of children walking out in West Hartlepool and Middlesbrough in England and Rattray, Blairgowrie, Hawick, Edinburgh and Dundee in Scotland.
How awful were these schools? They must have been terrible.
Corporal punishment was rife. Like, kids would just be caned for anything. So after the 1950s, schools had to start keeping punishment books. So you would get lists of what kids were punished for.
Oh.
And it was things like talking in class, 2 strikes of the cane. And it was just anything. Like I saw one that was like a kid spilt some water and so they got struck with a cane.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it was really awful.
My dad said he got hit with rulers.
Every time I tell people I went to a Catholic school, they're like, oh, did the nuns hit you?
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, there were no nuns. There was no corporal punishment. But that's just what people associate it with. Yeah.
Dad's school was a Catholic school and they were nuns.
Yeah.
Yes.
And they liked to hit, apparently.
They did.
Yeah. In Rattray, in Scotland, the local paper reported, the strikers caused considerable disturbance, but the movement was short-lived, most of them returning to school the same day, where they were duly rewarded for their pains.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Oh no, that's not a good reward.
So they were all just punished further for protesting punishment.
Oh no.
Yes. And like today, lots of adults and community leaders were sceptical that the children's intentions were genuine.
There has been so much nasty skepticism and so much like devaluing of young people's brains.
Totally.
Or like sense of, I don't know, like logic and justice.
Yeah, like how could you possibly know what you want?
Yeah.
It's like, well, I do, and I'm going to articulate it quite well. So
It seems mad to me because I definitely don't think I've gotten any cleverer since the time I was 16. Like definitely more life experience. But
yeah,
when you're 16, you are really, you're very smart when you're...
I think about the things that enraged me at that age, and they still enrage me today. Like, I don't think there's anything I would have protested over at that age that I wouldn't still agree with.
No, you just maybe have a more nuanced view. But that
I understand
mean...
more why the situation is the way it is, but it doesn't mean I agree with it anymore.
Exactly.
Yeah, totally. But yeah, everyone was just super dismissive of them. So a local leader at Rattray wrote to the paper and said, a demand for fewer hours and less lessons is the nominal reason assigned for the escapade, but in fact most of the scholars will confess that they really came out for a lark.
It's the same!
Literally the same. Yeah.
These students are only protesting so they can get a day off school.
Yep.
Ha!
It's like exactly the same thing, and this was in 1989.
1889.
It's like 120 years ago. 140 years ago.
Kids today.
Yes. It's like literally the exact
same
same
message.
reaction. Yeah. A reporter for the Times described the strike in Hawick as following the example of the dock strikers in being very orderly to try and gain public sympathy.
Smart.
Yeah, so they really utilised the example they were seeing from the adults around them,
right?
Which is cool. But it seems the whole point of the walking out wasn't just to gain public attention for their cause. But there was this thing where basically I don't quite understand it, but the government grants were given to schools for pupil attendance.
Oh, so you got funding based on how many kids came to school.
Yeah, and so basically if your students didn't attend schools...
You didn't get funding.
No, but then that fine was levied on parents, from what I can understand.
Oh, like if you didn't send your kids to school, you got fined.
Yes, so there was a quote from a later strike where someone explained how that worked.
Mm-hmm.
So there was this guy who was the chairman of an education committee, and he said in an interview that the absence from school of the children would greatly affect the government grants. The absence of each child would mean a loss of between a penny and 3 halfpence per half day, and he warned the parents to see that their children attended regularly. The more grants received, the less would be the education rate. Decreased grants would indirectly hit the working men who would have to pay increased rates.
Indirectly hit the working men.
So basically, I think education rates were offset by these government grants for your paid based on children's attendance. So if your children weren't attending, education rates
got more
that you paid to
expensive.
the council would go up eventually.
Right.
Yes.
So everyone suffers.
Yes. Okay. Totally.
Interesting.
Yeah. And so that was... like the kids were trying to make the point of you will have to pay for us protesting. So you better listen to what we're saying and you better do something about this because it's costing you money to have us walk out of school. Whereas, I mean, I don't know quite how it works here these days, but it seems like the protest of children walking out of school is still really effective and still sends a message, but not in the same financial way.
No.
Yeah. Of course, lots of people were really unimpressed with the strikes, in part because we saw schools as having a different function to what they do now.
Okay.
So they weren't a place for education, but a place to instill obedience.
I see.
So one critic wrote of the strikes, "They are manifestations of a serious deterioration in the moral fibre of the rising generation. They will prove dangerous centres of moral contamination." Yeah.
Wow.
Which I think is slightly different from the criticism that kids cop these days when they strike.
Yeah.
We think that they're being lazy and slacking off if people are being critical at all.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, a lot of people are being critical and that's the criticism they use, but I don't think people see it as immoral.
A moral failing.
Yeah.
No, unless they're the kind of person who sees protesting itself as a moral failing.
Well, yeah, I mean,
and that's a whole other.
Yeah. So these strikes in 1889 seemed to fizzle out after just a few days without achieving any of the students' aims, unfortunately. But 22 years later, another generation of students were like, fuck this shit, we're striking.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this was the first historical children's strike that I found out about.
Okay.
When I started poking into all of this.
Yeah.
It's the Children's Strike of 1911.
Good year.
A good year, yes.
Is it Titanic year?
The year before. Yeah. The halcyon days of pre-Titanic era. So since the 1889 strikes hadn't achieved any of the aims of reducing classroom hours or abolishing corporal punishment, students in 1911 were still being caned by their teachers for any perceived infraction.
Jeez.
But the children who came out on strike in 1911 were almost all from council schools, mostly in the industrial towns and poor and oppressed areas, which is kind of what set off this strike.
Okay.
So on the 5th of September 1911, a group of 30 or so boys marched out of Biggin Council School in Llanelli in southwest Wales.
I think that sounded wonderful.
Thank you.
But I'm not Welsh, so we'll reserve
the judgment for someone who knows how much I mangled that. So these boys were protesting the caning of one of their peers.
Okay.
And within days, the protest had spread across the country.
Wow.
But this was, again, preceded by industrial action by adults. So there had been unrest among the railway and dock workers and other labour groups in Llanelli at the same time.
So kids are getting inspired by their parents, basically.
Yeah, they're just, I don't want to say mimicking what they see around them because that sounds like they're not doing it with any conscious thought. But
seeing that it's a possibility.
Yeah, it opens up their minds to the idea that you can change a bad situation. Yeah. So the month before the children's strike, 600 soldiers were sent to Llanelli to keep the peace, which led to a riot with several fatalities.
Oh, no.
So they had seen some serious industrial action.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they were growing up in this environment of people demanding their rights. And they're like, we want that too. Yeah. So it made me think, I wonder how many of the kids involved in the 1889 children's strikes were now adults. Yeah, getting involved in all of this industrial action with unions and stuff. Yeah. Well, that was cool to think about.
Very cool.
Yeah. Because it's more depressing to think about the fact that the children from the 1911 strike then went on to go fight in the trenches in World War I. Yeah.
That is really depressing.
Yeah. So moving on to the strike. The particular incident that triggered the first strike in Biggin was the hitting of a child by an assistant teacher in the absence of the headmaster who was away from school on sick leave.
Is it that the headmaster's meant to hit the kids?
I think, they basically were like, you don't really have the authority. And then because the headmaster wasn't there, they were like, well, just time to rabble-rouse. Well, they felt like they had more power to fight back because it was an assistant teacher who I read in another report was not just an assistant teacher, but was also a temporary relief teacher. So they felt like they had no respect for the authority of that person. So they were more kind of happy to walk out. Yeah. So Gwilym Harries, the headmaster, was keen to play down the whole strike business, pointing out that all but 2 pupils were back in school after only a few hours' absence. But during these few hours of absence, the students gained support from other pupils of other schools by marching through the streets of the town singing and chanting.
Yes.
And then they stopped at the Park Street Chapel to strategize.
Wow.
Yeah, and there was this really politically aware, super hardcore group at the center of this. Some of them kids were just let's get out of class.
Yeah.
But there was a group of them that were really earnest and really serious about this.
Cool.
And I couldn't find the name of the kid who this quote came from, but he did go on to lead other strikes in other towns. And he said, "Comrades, my bleeding country calls me. The time has come. Someone must die for the cause."
Oh,
yeah, I know.
How old is he?
They were like, I think they were about 13, this group of kids. I don't think anyone died from what I can find out.
Hope not.
So it's all good. But they really believed in what they were doing.
Yeah.
And I think they were really inspired by the rhetoric around them from all the adults striking.
Sounds like it.
Yeah, so even if there were a few kids who were just skiving off class, some of these kids really believed in what they were doing.
Serious about it. Yeah.
Yeah. So, like the 1889 strikes, they wanted the same things: end corporal punishment, less classroom hours, smaller workloads, and better holidays.
Mm-hmm.
And again, money was an issue, so they were trying to play off this whole thing with the government grants.
Yeah.
The next day, September 6th, children in Edge Hill district of Liverpool also went on strike, and taking a leaf out of their unionising parents' books, they formed a strike committee and presented their school with a list of demands, including abolition of the cane, an extra half-day holiday per week, and pay for student monitors.
They knew how to do it.
I know.
Strike committee.
Amazing. Yeah.
That's so impressive.
It's incredible. So the strike spread to Manchester, where students were also protesting the corporal punishment of one of their fellow students. Mm-hmm. And then within days, the strike had spread to more than 60 towns around Britain.
Wow.
Blamed by local councillors on newspapers who, while not reporting favourably about the strikers, were reporting on it.
So it gave them attention.
Yeah, the strikes in Hull were on the front page of the newspaper.
Go Hull.
I know.
City of Culture, 2018.
Good old Hull. So as the strike began spreading all over the country, the same authorities began to blame the popular halfpenny press for giving the schoolboys ideas.
Above their station.
Yes.
Oh dear.
As well as blaming the parents for striking. And blaming the history books for giving them romantic ideas of adventure. There was a quote in a newspaper from some hoity-toity grumpy teacher person that said, "Formerly, boys drew their inspiration from tales of adventures or the more romantic episodes related in their history books. The advent of the picture press and the cinematograph has brought them into closer contact with current events. Their conduct of the strike reveals a close intimacy with the methods employed in the railway and dockers' strikes." It's so funny. I feel like it's today we're all like, these kids spend too much time on the internet reading too many stupid things, and it's basically the same criticism.
Too many video games.
Yeah. So the strikes continued into September and reached as far south as Portsmouth and Southampton, and Scotland. Schools in Glasgow and Leith were affected.
In Leith?
Yeah.
Right here?
Right here.
I wonder if it was Leith Academy just down the road.
Quite possibly. So they would march through the streets, picket their schools, and their main action was to picket non-striking schools to encourage them to join.
Wow.
There was quite a few reports of loyal scholars or kids who refused to strike being hit with sticks by protesters.
Oh no.
Hey
cool. Now, that's not the way to do it.
Which I feel like reflects the action of some small sections of unions when they were striking of being really opposed to anyone not joining in on a strike.
Yeah.
In industrial areas, children used to chalk write on the pavements and walls around the schools to proclaim their grievances, which is what they did in Leith. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Cool. A lot of students were only out of school for a few hours and were scared back to class by the appearance of headmasters and teachers. But in some cases, the police were called in to deal with them.
Really?
And children as young as 6 were arrested.
Oh, no.
Yeah. At Tower Bridge Police Court, quote, 2 tiny tots aged 6 and 8 were brought before the magistrate on September 15th.
Oh.
They were both named Tilia and were from Bermondsey, and they were charged with wandering abroad without proper guardianship.
I don't think charged for that?
Yeah, I don't think they were ever actually prosecuted, but I think it was like a scare tactic.
I mean, I guess they're too little to prosecute anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was like, don't go wandering around and having opinions now. The strikers were particularly formidable in Shoreditch in East London, making heavy raids, quote, armed with sticks, stones, iron bars, and belts. They breathed sufficient fire and slaughter to cause a dozen police to be specially called out.
Wow.
Which basically just means they smashed a few windows at their school building.
I mean, pretty scary stuff,
Yeah.
though.
These were like 11-year-olds.
11-year-olds can be pretty scary. Have you met
Gangs, they can be.
11-year-olds?
Yeah. So the strikes were not all violent. In Hartlepool, the boys walked along the sands and picnicked, taking advantage of the splendid late summer weather. Because September in the UK is the very beginning of school.
It's the best month as well. It's so good.
Yeah, it's lovely. In other places, they went swimming or simply sat around and chilled. And in Northampton, strikers went blackberry picking.
Oh, how idyllic.
I know. And there was, of course, retaliation for the strikes. At Biggin Boys' School in Llanelli, the headmaster, Gwilym Harries, caned every single one of the boys who walked out.
Ooh.
And he was incredibly dismissive of their actions. And basically was like, oh, this wasn't even a strike at all. It's just stupid. It was just some insubordination. And it's like, seriously, did you not see what it inspired? I don't think you can really be that dismissive of that.
No.
So, as well as corporal punishment, they were also risking getting a poor character reference or no reference at all upon leaving school, which was really crucial for getting a job.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah.
So it was a really big risk.
Yeah, they weren't just being flippant about it. Like, you were playing with your future. And kids knew that because you knew you needed this good reference to secure you a good job.
Mm-hmm.
In the end, mothers were the biggest strike breakers.
Oh, dear.
Yeah. They would pressure children when they returned home at the end of the first day's strike, and in some cases, they intervened more actively, dragging the children back to school on the following day, and in a few cases, mounting counter pickets at the school gates.
My goodness.
Yeah. Mums were not having it.
Probably didn't want to have their kids just hanging about at home.
Yeah. So it was all over by mid to late September. Thousands of school children had been involved, which only represented about 1% of the school-age population.
Okay.
But it had made a huge impact, like it had gained a lot of media attention. Mm-hmm. But, again, none of the demands were met, and it would take until 1986 for corporal punishment to be banned in state-run schools in Britain. And it wasn't banned in private schools until 1998 in England and Wales, 2000 in Scotland, and 2003 in Northern Ireland.
No way.
Yeah.
That's so late.
It's insane.
2002. No, 2000.
2003 in Northern Ireland, 2000 in Scotland.
Oh my goodness.
The year 2000, you were still allowed to hit a child.
You're telling me
school.
Jamie could have been caned if he'd gone to a private school.
Yep.
Holy moly. Thank God for state education, I guess.
Yeah. One of the few things that Britain got right in the mid-80s. Yeah, It's insane. There, of course, have been more strikes between now and then.
Mm-hmm.
So the next one happened pretty soon after the 1911 strikes, and it was a bit smaller, but it was much longer.
Okay.
So in 1914, students of the Burston School in Norfolk kicked off the longest-running strike in British history when they protested the dismissal of their teacher, Annie Higdon, and her husband, Tom.
Oh, that's sweet.
I know. So basically, she took up a teaching position at this school that was in this rich parish that invested no money in its school for working-class families and children.
Okay.
And she clashed with the newly arrived and very well-paid rector, Reverend Charles Tucker Elland.
Great.
Yep. And basically, she complained about the conditions of the school, in particular the dampness, the inadequate heating and lighting, and lack of ventilation, and general unhygienic conditions. And they were, like, they didn't hold with her rabble-rousing, and they tried to get rid of her.
Wow.
And so they brought up some trumped-up charges on her, and she demanded an inquest, but she got sick. And then the teachers' union sent a very poor representative for her, and she was dismissed.
Oh, no.
Yeah, and so she was given 3 months' notice to leave. But it turns out when you look after children and care about their needs and treat them kindly, they really like that. Yay. And they like you. So, led by student Violet Potter, the students went on strike in support of Annie. And encouraged by the community, the Higdons went on to set up an alternative school, which was initially attended by 66 of their 72 former pupils. And they basically ran this, like, whole other school in the village for students where they ran it properly.
Oh,
yeah.
That's so lovely.
A purpose-built school financed by donations from the labour movement was opened on the 13th of May, 1917, with Violet Potter declaring, "With joy and thankfulness, I declare this school open to be forever a school of freedom."
Oh, Violet.
Yeah.
What a superstar.
I know. It was called the Burston Strike School, and it carried on teaching local children until shortly after Tom's death in 1939, when the protest formally ended after 25 years.
My goodness.
Yeah.
Protest
school!
So the whole school was a protest?
The school itself became a protest against the unfair parish system that was not running an adequate school.
Amazing.
Yeah, and that
it.
was done by students saying, actually, no, we want the teacher who cares about us.
Yep.
Yeah. On May 27th, 1971, 800 pupils in Stepney, East London, went on strike, which successfully won the reinstatement of a teacher who was sacked for publishing a book of pupils' poetry.
Oh.
Yeah.
These are all really sweet teacher supportive stories. I think my mum will enjoy this.
In 1985, there was nationwide student protests against the Youth Training Scheme, or the YTS.
Uh-huh.
So the YTS was set up in 1883, claiming to offer workplace training for 16 to 17-year-olds on a voluntary basis. But it was basically like a shitty apprenticeship scheme that employers took advantage of for cheap labour.
Okay.
Yeah, with like no guaranteed job at the end.
Mm.
And then in 1985, the government threatened to make the scheme compulsory and take unemployment benefits away from young people who refused to participate. And because at the time most kids left school at 16, it felt really punitive and really unfair. So in protest, school students organised against this proposal. Children in Scotland walked out in April, and around 2 weeks later, on April 25th, 1985, there was a national strike.
Wow.
Yeah. In Liverpool, 30,000 children skipped class. And 10,000 took to the streets.
30,000 children skipped class?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my goodness.
Yes. And 10,000 of them went out into the streets to protest.
Wow.
Yeah. So, for context, the march you were at in Edinburgh, the climate march, that was 20,000 people.
I mean, it felt pretty impressive.
Yeah.
But yeah, cool.
So then that was, like, imagine half of that just for students. Yeah.
It was mostly students.
Yeah.
It was amazing. I sort of thought it would be more mixed, but it really was a youth climate strike.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was brilliant.
School kids in Reading.
Good old Reading. Lovely Reading.
Held a rowdy demonstration and faced off against police who arrested 41 of them.
Holy moly.
Yep. In Cardiff, 3,000 demonstrated and 3 pupils were suspended from a high school, and 100 of their fellow pupils walked out in protest the next day.
Wow.
Following the strike, the government withdrew plans to take away non-participants' benefits, but then 3 years later the scheme was made compulsory anyway. So they won their protest, but then 3 years later it was,
Bugger.
Yes. After that, the next big strike was in 2003, and it was the student protests of the Iraq War.
Cool.
Yes. So students of all ages, primary to university, joined protests in and out of school on the first official day of the invasion of Iraq. Mandy Telford, president of the National Union of Students, said, "Freedom for the Iraqi people must not be brought about by needless bloodshed." And there was a quote from a student who protested. Her name was Sinead, and she was 18 and from a North London sixth form college. She was at the big Westminster demonstration.
Okay.
She said, "Tony Blair might have got the Commons vote, but so many people are against this. People are angry and frustrated at being ignored." Which I feel like really sums up why so many students protest, because they're frustrated and no one listens to them and they don't have a voice in anything.
No, they can't even vote.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
A Stop the War demonstration in Edinburgh caused extensive disruption in the city centre. And it was mainly school-aged youngsters who gathered near the Scottish Parliament and later split into smaller groups to stop traffic in various locations.
Nice.
So, like many of the recent protests, there was a lot of people saying children shouldn't be protesting such things. How could they understand? They're just mimicking their parents' opinions. And while I've always been supportive of student protests, and considering I was 13 at the time of the Iraq War protests, so the same age as most of the kids, and I definitely agreed with them, I recently read something that made me faintly ill, but also brings home why it's important for kids to have a say in these things.
Okay.
Did you know that children who weren't even alive when the invasion of Afghanistan happened, which was 2 years earlier than the Iraq invasion, are now serving as soldiers as part of the occupying force? That's how long that shit has been going on for. And that's why when you tell kids something won't affect them, you're really bloody wrong.
Yeah,
like, it absolutely will. It will absolutely affect them. Those wars are still happening now. We are now voting, tax-paying citizens.
Yeah.
And those wars are still happening.
And climate change is most certainly going to happen.
Absolutely.
It's happening. So it's already affecting those kids.
Totally. Yeah. So it just really frustrates me when people are so dismissive of kids having opinions of things that are happening in the future.
I mean, they're people in the world too.
Absolutely.
It's ridiculous to say. I mean, if you've got an opinion, if you've formed an opinion, if you've taken the time to bother to think about something.
It's also, even if you are mimicking the opinions of those people around you, to take the time to articulate it and form a protest means you've really thought about it and you care about it.
Way more than most adults do often.
Absolutely.
You know, adults get complacent. We get tired, you know, and we see things less clearly. There's so much value in young people articulating those ideas because they're so sharp.
Yeah.
They're really
definitely.
Great. Yeah.
So after the 2003 protests, there were the really big 2010 student protests in London, where university students protested cuts to education funding and increased fees.
They were massively increased as well.
Yes.
They were like doubled.
It was insane.
Yeah.
And about 100,000 school-aged children joined in those protests.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And then that brings us to the recent climate strikes. So the UK Student Climate Network planned over 200 events across the United Kingdom for the 20th of September this year. And organisers said that roughly 300,000 people participated in strikes across the country.
Wow.
With 20,000 in Edinburgh.
Yes.
And the estimations have come in at 6 million worldwide.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
My colleague Mim helped out organising the protest and she was doing PR for it. So she was connected to strike organisers all around the world.
Oh, that's so cool.
And there were all these photos coming into her WhatsApp group of, you know, like stuff happening in Delhi and stuff happening in Melbourne and stuff happening like just all over the world.
Yeah.
These
There's
pictures
been so many incredible kids being so articulate about the problems they're facing.
Yeah.
There was a protest on, I feel really bad that I can't remember the name of which Pacific Island, but on one of the Pacific Islands where these children all walked into the ocean because they're really worried about the problems with rising sea levels that they're facing and the damage it's already doing to their communities.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, these kids know what they're facing. Yeah.
Mim showed me a map of Edinburgh with the estimated, like, predicted sea level rise.
Oh.
My house is definitely underwater.
Will we all just be living on top of Arthur's Seat?
Pretty much, yeah.
Great.
Castle Rock and Arthur's Seat.
Jesus.
Maybe Blackford Hill.
I know we said this last time, but get off your asses and write to your local MP and join in your local climate action network because kids shouldn't be missing out on their educations for a problem that's affecting all of us and that a lot of us created.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Nice one, Claire.
Thank you. So yeah, kids, they're getting shit done.
Yeah.
They always have been.
They always have since 1889.
Yeah. So Ellie, what are you going to teach me about today?
Claire.
Ellie.
Amazing Claire.
Darling Ellie.
I love doing this podcast with you.
Me too.
I love spending time really digging into juicy historical topics.
Also.
Topics that help me understand my new home better. But this past month, I've been researching something that has just been so messy and just has come at me from so many different directions that it's just been confusing and weird. I don't know if I understand the UK better now. Maybe I have a greater depth of knowledge, but it's all over the place. Because, Claire, I was researching fox hunting.
Oh.
What do you know about fox hunting?
You hunt a fox?
Yeah.
And the fox dies?
I mean, kinda. Yeah, that's a good estimation.
I'm guessing it's sadder than that.
It's pretty icky.
Oh.
It's not pretty.
Oh,
for
no.
For sure. So fox hunting, it's old, it's very posh, it's illegal in the UK, but somehow people are still doing it.
Ugh.
Why? How?
Because tradition.
I mean, that's a big part of it, but would you like to hear more?
Absolutely,
Okay.
I would.
All right. I'll tell you. You ready?
Yes.
All right. Okay. Yes. Let's start with foxes. So foxes are members of the dog family. Isn't that cool? They're basically little dogs.
See that with their little pointy faces.
And their little pointy ears.
Yeah.
And their big bushy tails. But foxes unlike dogs, can retract their claws like
That's
cats.
spooky cat magic.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
No
And
way.
they also have vertical pupils. You know how cats
Yes.
do too? So they're kind of like cat dogs.
Oh my god. The
Very-
ultimate animal.
I know. So perfect. They're the most widespread species of wild dog in the world.
Oh, wow.
They live in pretty much every environment. In countryside, in cities, in forests, on mountains, in grasslands. Arctic foxes live in really cold climates, super far north.
Oh, they're pretty.
The little pretty white ones. Yeah, they're really cute. And then fennec foxes, which are the ridiculous ones with,
yes,
with the
giant
massive ears. They live in the North African desert. So they're really adaptable, amazing creatures. Red foxes, that's the species that lives in the UK, use 28 different calls or noises to communicate.
Oh, so chatty.
The very chatty little beans, yes. And a group of foxes is called a skulk.
Oh, that's
Isn't that
great.
fabulous?
Yeah.
Very good. So nobody seems to know exactly how many foxes there are in the UK.
Okay.
I don't know why. I really, really, really tried to find out. I spent hours
Wow.
combing the internet to try and find out. Apparently they're really hard to count here.
Because they skulk around all the time?
Maybe they do have sets. No, that's badgers. They have burrows. So maybe they're hiding in their burrows or
Yeah.
something. And
But they're such a pretty colour, they should be easy to spot.
you would think. But no one seems to know exactly. So there's been some modelling done, though, by the Department of Environment, Farming and Rural Affairs, and they reckon there were about 430,000 foxes in the UK in 2013.
One for every person in Edinburgh.
Yeah, everyone gets a fox.
Yay! Oh, I can't wait to get my fox.
What will you call it?
Philip the fox.
Oh, that's a good name. That's cute.
Oh no. He's going to hate me.
Nah, he'll adore you. Okay, so that's quite a few foxes. It sounds like quite a lot, doesn't it?
Yeah.
430,000 foxes in 2013. One for every person in Edinburgh. But according to the British Trust for Ornithology, so birds, who for some reason are the leading authority on monitoring foxes and all wildlife populations in the UK.
What?
I don't know why.
Is it because you get a bird's eye view of the situation?
That must be it, Claire.
Yeah.
That's it. You're welcome. So they estimate that the population of red foxes is decreasing. So I know between 1996 and 2017, they think the population decreased by 42%.
Whoa, that's a lot. Between when and when, sorry?
1996 and 2017.
That's so fast.
About 20 years, 42%.
Yeah.
That's almost a halving of the population.
Shit.
So, yeah. But genuinely, we don't know how many foxes there are, is the main point. Like, there's all these estimates.
Okay.
But
So it's possible that we've just been counting them really badly in all that time.
yeah, but we know they're decreasing.
Okay.
No matter what. So, that's foxes.
Oh, poor Foxy.
But what is a fox hunt?
Yes.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Indeed. We've come to the point.
Since I didn't... Foxes turns out to be a thing I didn't even know what they were. Cat-dog hybrids.
Dog hybrid.
Maybe I don't even know what a fox hunt is anymore.
Well, let's talk about fox hunts. So, Oscar Wilde calls fox hunts the unspeakable in full pursuit of the uneatable, which I think's a good way to start us off.
Yeah.
So, in that vein, Claire, I want you to close your eyes.
Okay.
I want you to picture a really, really posh, pink, British person. Okay,
Yeah.
got it?
Yeah.
She's wearing a bright red riding jacket,
Oh, yeah.
frighteningly tight white trousers.
Jodhpurs.
Yes, jodhpurs. Thank you,
No worries.
jodhpurs. And black, shiny riding boots.
Oh, yeah. She's definitely wearing spurs as well.
Oh, yes. She's got herself a helmet because safety first.
Black velvet.
Black velvet helmet. And she has a riding crop.
Oh, yeah.
Let's hope she doesn't use it
Oh, she does.
on you.
Oh, she definitely does.
Also, she's on a horse.
Oh, yes. Yeah,
Cool.
yeah.
Yes. So this is the master. Let's call her Pandora.
Oh.
Pandora has organised a hunt for today. Yay!
I'm so excited, Pandora.
Me too, Pandora. Pandora has a pack of 40 hounds, a huntsman.
Hello.
Also a posh British person on a horse, but this one has a hunting horn. How exciting. And
a whole new toy.
A whole new toy. And a whole bunch of followers or people she has invited to the meet. So there's Charles and Philippa and Antoine. All the people at the meet.
Oh, no.
So when Pandora has gone round and said hello to everyone, everyone's had a little bit of breakfast. When she's good and ready, she commands the hounds to move off to search the countryside for a fox. When the fox is found, so when the hounds find the fox, they start to cry.
Oh.
But it's not like sad cry.
Okay.
It's like that. Exactly like that. That was an exact replication of what the hounds sound like.
That was amazing. I was there. I was in the moment. I was behind Pandora.
Then the huntsman blows the horn.
Right.
And Pandora legit shouts, "Tally-ho!"
Piss off.
Truly.
Wow.
Yeah. And the hunt begins.
Does Pandora have no self-awareness?
Zero.
Does she not know what a caricature she is?
No, she loves it. She's really into it.
Okay.
She wasn't made up by me making a caricature of a huntsperson. So, Pandora the huntsman, her dogs and her mates chase the fox till it's exhausted.
Oh.
Traditionally in the UK, the hunt only ends when the hounds kill the fox.
Oh.
Not nice. Traditionally. At the end of the day, Pandora awards the fox's brush or tail, mask or head, and pads, feet, as trophies to any followers who she considers to deserve the honour.
Oh, God.
Pandora! And then the body of the fox is thrown to the hounds, and they just tear it to bits.
Oh, Foxy Loxy.
Really, and we've just learned all about foxes. We know how clever they are and how amazing
cat-dog hybrids.
Little cat-dog hybrids. So how long has this been going on? This kind of hunty situation.
It's either really, really old or weirdly new.
It's kind of both.
Oh.
Weirdly. So it starts with the Romans.
Oh, classic.
Of course.
We haven't mentioned them in a while.
And it's been too long, hasn't it?
Love them.
So they were really, really into their recreational hunting, the Romans.
Good on them.
In AD 43, when they came over to Britain, they brought new breeds of foxhounds, a brown hare, and a new species of deer that they could just pop around hunting. So they brought animals over to hunt.
I always forget this is an island and there might have been things on the continent that they didn't have here.
Yeah, things that couldn't swim. Then in 1066, our other good mates, the Normans, who were also super into hunting, arrived with their Talbot and Gascon foxhounds. So I looked them up. They're really, really cute.
Oh.
It's just a type of foxhound.
Yeah.
They're adorbs.
We can't blame the hounds.
No, I mean, it's not their fault.
No.
They're merely pawns in the
Rich people's game.
Yeah, exactly. So after the Normans came, deer and boar hunting became seriously the thing to do in England. It was like the cool activity if you had lots of time and money and horses.
Conveniently, I've got none of those.
Me neither. Oh, imagine having a horse.
The dream.
The dream. In 1340, medieval laws on hunting were formalised. So someone was like, let's write these things down and actually, make them into proper laws instead of them just being conventions.
Right.
So a thing called the Royal Forest was established. Now, that was an area of land designated to the king, and only the king, for hunting and forestry.
Is this the thing that Charles I tried to get back and tax everyone on?
That's exactly it. Yep, that's it, Claire. So it's not just forest, it includes woodland, heathland, and agricultural land. Oh. So it's just the king being like, this mine.
I want this bit.
And as of the 12th century, nearly a third of England's territory was assigned as royal forest or the king's territory. So like a third of England.
That's insane.
It's so much land. Only the king and other permitted members of the nobility were allowed to hunt game in the royal forest.
Wow.
I know. Around this time, foxes began to be hunted along with deer, and Edward I was believed to have had the first royal foxhound pack. In 1534, fox hunting started to creep on into the scene a bit more, with the earliest properly recorded fox hunt in Norfolk. Then there was the English Civil War, and people were a little bit too busy chopping the king's head off and invading Ireland.
Shouldn't have prorogued Parliament.
Should not have done it. So they were a bit too busy to do much hunting. So
fair.
We'll pause.
They were hunting. They were just hunting the king.
Look, he'd probably been on lots of hunts.
Yeah.
So, I'm not advocating hunting people
in
any way. In 1660, we had a king again.
Whew, thank God, order is restored.
Charles II. And he was really into hunting. So hunting kicked off again. But people were still mostly keen on hunting deer rather than foxes. That was like the glamorous thing to do.
It seems like a more challenging target. I think hunting's weird generally anyway.
Yeah. Yes. Anyway. In the 1670s, Britain's oldest fox hunt, the Billsdale in Yorkshire, was founded, and it's still going.
Wow.
So it's been going since the 1670s.
Whoa.
Then, in 1760, we come to a little thing called the enclosures.
Hey!
Oh my God, what were they, Claire?
I feel like if we go back to episode 11, we'll learn all about that.
Okay.
But it's basically when we cut off all the land and made it private and no one got to go anywhere and do anything anymore.
Yes, you are so right. And it was the catalyst for so much social change.
Yes.
But also, weirdly, the catalyst for people stopping deer hunting and starting fox hunting.
Because you needed less space?
Mm-hmm. So the land became more enclosed, which meant deer weren't as happy. So the deer population went... Well, yeah, they couldn't roam.
Yes.
So then the deer population went down, and it became harder to hunt them because there were all these hedgerows everywhere, and you have to be constantly... Like, if you ever have seen footage of a fox hunt in Downton Abbey or anything, they're always jumping over hedgerows. And in fox hunting, you can kind of do that because you're not going great distances because it's a fox.
Whereas deer can run for a lot longer.
Yeah, they're big. So yeah, fox hunting started to be a thing because we had less space.
I never thought about that.
No, it's cool. In 1831, the game law, which restricted game hunting to nobles, was repealed. That meant that you didn't have to be a noble anymore to hunt and kill things. Great. Anyone can do it.
Wow.
It's free for all. Kill anything you want.
I mean, I'm torn between being glad that you aren't limited by your lack of nobility, but also ill hunting.
That's exactly it. Well articulated.
Yes.
So throughout the rest of the 19th century, fox hunting grew in popularity as the expanding railways allowed horses and hunters to travel across the country and get to their...
Ponies on trains!
Ponies on trains!
Ponies on trains!
Having a great time.
Ponies going to the seaside for holidays!
Well, no, going to kill fellow mammals, unfortunately. In the year 2000, there was a thing called the Burns Report.
Oh.
So it was conducted by a retired senior civil servant called Lord Burns. Good name.
Great.
And Lord Burns concluded, after much investigation, that hunting seriously compromises the welfare of the fox.
Oh, really?
Duh.
Does it?
Lord
I'm
Burns.
so shocked.
I mean, come on, mate.
Ugh.
So he thought that we should limit hunting, but that it should continue under certain conditions. That was his advice to Parliament.
Right.
So in 2004, a thing called the Hunting Act was passed.
Yes.
It bans the hunting of foxes and other wild mammals with dogs in the UK.
So you can't run them down and have them be eaten to death.
Yes, with hounds.
Right.
Yeah. So there are a few little loopholes in this law, which I'll go through later.
Okay.
But that with dogs bit is important.
All right.
So despite the fact that there is a hunting act and hunting foxes is illegal in the UK, there are currently 176 active foxhound packs. So packs of foxhounds that are ready
illegal.
They're ready to go on hunts anytime.
What?
176.
Jesus, that's a lot.
Yeah. in England and Wales, and then 10 in Scotland. So 186.
Whoa.
Mm-hmm. That's heaps.
And that's packs, which means there's multiple dogs in all of those packs.
There's lots of dogs.
Whoa.
It's like thousands of dogs.
Jeez.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. In the last few years, hunts have seen an increase in membership, and the Masters of the Foxhounds Association, or the MFHA, currently represents, 176 foxhound packs. So there used not to be that many. It's grown.
What?
Uh-huh.
But the grown post
Law.
illegalness.
Yes, exactly.
No.
Yeah. In 2014, it was found that 250,000 fox hunters attended Boxing Day hunts across the UK.
No, you stay home and watch the cricket even though you hate cricket.
No, you go out and you kill a fox.
Jesus.
So there we go. So fox hunting is illegal in the UK.
Right.
But people still do it.
Hence
Yes.
these large numbers.
Yes. Hound packs, yes.
Whoa.
So how do they still do it?
Yes.
And why do they still do it? Two big questions.
I feel like it's going to be tradition and wealth.
You really bang on. How did you know?
Because Britain is ruled by an elitist class of really wealthy people who are obsessed with tradition and order.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it. So, also, the Hunting Act has a couple of loopholes.
Oh, God. Well, it was written by a lord. Of course he put in loopholes for all his buddies.
All is fox
Because what
hunting
happens when the rich people are in power is writing laws to support their rich friends.
That's right, Conrad. So,
Thank you.
the Act says that you can hunt foxes if they pose a danger to livestock, game, crops, or fisheries.
Oh, that's so vague.
It's so vague and it's so handy because hunts will just claim that's what they're doing, and there isn't a whole lot of police presence in the idyllic English countryside, so it's really hard for police to check in on whether that's actually what's taking place because there's just not enough police. The Act also says that it has no problem with you doing trail hunting. What's a trail hunt?
What indeed?
Yes. So it's kind of weird. A trail hunt is where someone goes ahead of the hunt and lays down a fake fox scent trail for the hounds to follow instead of pursuing a real life fox.
Okay.
But the trouble with that is that hounds are sniffing about in a wood with a fake trail, but also lots of real foxes around because it's a wood. And they've been trained to hunt and kill foxes, so...
Oh no, look, it happened to just spot a real fox.
Oops.
How could we have controlled that?
Exactly.
We definitely put down a fake scent trail first, and they just didn't want to follow it.
And that's also really hard to police as well because, how are you going to really know that people are laying down fake scent trails?
Yeah.
That's something that doesn't...
You can't send a hound after it because they'll just want to find a real fox.
Exactly. So advocates for hunting, including the Scottish Countryside Alliance, claim that people hunt solely, Claire, as a pest control measure.
Oh, controlling that native animal that lives here and is part of the natural ecosystem, that pest.
That pest.
Yeah.
And that one that we don't know how many of them there are.
But we definitely know they're in decline.
Yes. That one.
Yeah, that pest.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're the most notorious of pests.
Even if we did definitely need to control the fox population, I can think of 100 more efficient and humane ways to cull foxes.
Yeah, many of which we've implemented in Australia where our foxes are actually a problem.
Exactly.
And no one goes around doing these weird hunts in these strange costumes, calling people master.
That's it.
And murdering them viciously in a process that takes an entire day to kill a single fox.
Exactly, Claire. Exactly. In
So
fact,
mad now.
there are 7 million foxes in Australia.
Whoa!
Yeah.
Whoa!
So just to recap,
Jesus!
they think there's about 430,000 foxes in the UK. They think, but they don't know. But we know, because apparently we're good at counting foxes, that there are 7 million
That's
of
one for
them.
every single person in Sydney and Melbourne.
Yeah, we have so many. And funny, we don't do hunts where we dress up in fancy clothes and hop on horses and take a 60 pack of foxhounds out.
Yeah, to kill one fox.
No.
It's almost like it's not about pest control.
I know,
it's
weird.
about lying through your teeth because you don't want to give up the minimal amount of power that you're trying to retain as you see it crumbling before you as the working classes rise up to destroy you.
You're beautiful. I love it. So that's how they still do it.
Yeah.
But why do they still do it, Claire?
Yes.
So I chatted to my lovely, lovely mate, Rushka, who volunteers with a group called Action Against Fox Hunting.
Cool.
So she's been protesting against fox hunting for a long time. Her granny lives in the countryside in England, and they've just had a really long, she's had a long relationship with this issue.
That's cool.
And she's known about it her whole life. And she thinks that one of the main reasons that people still do it is for networking.
Oh, yeah.
She says fox hunting is an aspirational sport and people have to pay lots and lots and lots of money to participate in it. It reminds people of the great English traditions like scones and colonial expansion. And lots of important people take part in it. So by going to a fox hunt, you might get to know the who's who of your village or town or country and get a bit of a leg up in life.
Yeah, I can definitely see that.
Yeah. I also chatted to a mate who grew up fox hunting,
which
was really... everyone I asked about this who has grown up in the UK had a different perspective.
Oh, yeah.
Like, one of my colleagues grew up in Wales, and he says he remembers when the ban came in, all of the people who had fox hunting packs came into town and said, that's it, we just have to kill all the dogs. And Harry just remembers thinking,
oh my God.
I mean, obviously you don't have to do that.
No.
You're being terrible. You're being completely over the top and dramatic and...
Oh, that's awful.
Yeah. So this other friend who grew up fox hunting, she said that the reason people do it is that it's just fun. She said it's just fun, which is worrying because the thing is, it's also really cruel. It's such a cruel thing to do to another creature. And
fun is a cultural concept in many ways as well. Like if you're raising kids and telling them this is what we do for fun, they will they'll find it fun.
Yeah, exactly.
And it takes a kind of really strong character to go against what the rest of the people around you are telling you is fun. So of course people think it's fun when you've been brainwashed into thinking it's fun.
And lots of things are fun. Like Kayleys are fun, bowling.
Yep.
Great fun.
I grew up horse riding in Australia.
Yeah.
And I had an incredible time horse riding that never involved chasing something down to its death.
Yeah. Exactly.
Like you can still have the thrill of an incredible ride through beautiful countryside that doesn't involve murder.
Yeah, exactly, Claire.
Jeez.
Exactly. And most people agree with you. So in 2017, the British people were surveyed on whether they continue to support the ban on fox hunting, and the result was resounding. It was the highest margin ever recorded on the matter. 85% of people thought fox hunting should remain prohibited.
Wow.
So that's massive. That's just like everyone. And there are heaps of amazing organisations who are campaigning for a complete ban on fox hunting, including the League Against Cruel Sports. And there's also a really brave group of people who actually go out and sabotage fox hunts.
Wow.
They're called SABs, which I quite like. They're really brave. They're incredible people. They basically go and disrupt hunts. So they'll do things like spray eucalyptus oil to cover the scent of foxes so hounds can't smell them. They use horns to confuse the hounds. So the hounds respond to the horns' different cries. And if the horn's saying, no, there's no fox here, go back, they'll just go back. So that's smart. And they very
non-cruel way to manipulate the situation.
Exactly. And they also gather evidence when hunts are breaking the law. So that's fantastic. They take lots of video and gather evidence. But SABs and hunting parties aren't the only people who are divided on this issue. So politicians massively disagree about fox hunting. It's still a really hot button issue in Parliament. The Hunting Act is still up for debate. So the Conservative Party under David Cameron pledged to repeal the Hunting Act in the manifesto for the 2015 election, which was also the election where David Cameron promised Brexit.
Yeah,
so that was that was a good one, David Cameron. And there's heaps of MPs who've indicated that they would vote for a repeal. Some really famous ones too. So I've got a big list here, but Sajid Javid, Amber Rudd, Theresa May, David Davies, Michael Gove, George Osborne, Boris Johnson.
Yeah, obviously.
Yeah.
Is this based on what their constituents want, or is this based on their personal belief in their right to be a rich idiot?
This is based on their voting records.
Yeah, but I mean, I wonder what drives that, though. Like, is it that they are like, oh, but I'm doing this because my constituents all want to be able to fox hunt? Which it can't be if 85% of people
but
support the ban.
that'll be all the people who are not really, really wealthy living in conservative
some of these
parts
MPs have to represent some of those people.
I mean, I think most of these MPs are in like home counties, you know, the really posh areas around London. Because there's also Jacob Rees-Mogg. I mean, surprise, surprise. And Jeremy Hunt has actually said that he would support a repeal of the Hunting Act to make it legal to hunt foxes. Yeah, I know. So, like, it's already easy enough to hunt with it illegal.
Imagine what it would be like
if we just repealed it completely. But in Scotland, at least, it looks like the Hunting Act might be being strengthened. Maybe.
Good.
In 2016, a guy called Lord Bonamy conducted a review of the Protection of Wild Mammals Act. So that's the act that governs fox hunting in Scotland, because there's always a different act for the Scottish Parliament and the English Parliament. So it's not the Hunting Act, it's the Wild Mammals Act. It suggested lots of changes to the law, including greater transparency and limiting the number of dogs that can be used to flush out or find a fox.
Yeah, you don't need 60 dogs to find a single fox that's a quote-unquote pest on your property.
So they're suggesting that you use 2 dogs. 2
Way
single
more reasonable.
dogs. Yeah. Because in Scotland, it is legal to fox hunt, but you can't let the hounds kill the fox. You have to shoot the fox.
Sure. I wonder how often that actually manages to happen.
Yeah, I wonder. And earlier this year, the Minister for Rural Affairs, Mary Gougeon, announced her intention to bring forward a bill that will implement changes proposed by Lord Bonamy's review on the subject.
Great.
So
it turns me how often lords are getting all up in my laws these days. I forget that that's a thing here.
I mean, there's a whole house of them.
I know. I hate them on principle.
So that's fox hunting. So I'm still almost as confused as I was when I first found out that people still did fox hunting. I mean, that is it, isn't it? It's maintaining a system of privilege.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I hate when people are like, but tradition, but we've always done this. It's like, wow, do you really want to be that stick in the mud who never changes?
Yeah.
Like, it just...
Not all traditions are good traditions.
No, and also traditions start at some point. Let's start a new tradition that doesn't revolve around, like, the savage destruction of life.
It truly is so cool. I mean, we come from a country where animals do have to be culled a lot of the time. Like,
yes.
We've both grown up knowing about the rabbit plague in Australia.
Yes, I'm all for killing rabbits in Australia.
It just has to happen because we fucked up. Because we, white people brought rabbits to a country where they should not be.
Yeah.
And now...
environmental degradation is
we got to protect the problem. Cute little native animals.
But also the environmental degradation of destroying foxes. Like, what would happen if you took foxes out of the ecosystem in the UK?
They're not an apex predator, so they're more of a like scavenger kind of deal. But it's clear to me, if they don't know how many foxes there are in the UK,
they can't tell what impact they're having.
No, I mean there can't possibly have been enough studies to indicate what impact it would have if foxes went extinct.
Absolutely.
Or were put under such severe pressure that they all moved into the cities. Like, what would that do? So I just... You can't say that you're doing this for culling. It's just completely illogical.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, as we've seen recently, even the smartest of people will blithely ignore and deny science in the name of economic gain.
And funsies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, that was insane. Thank you, Ellie, for that.
My pleasure.
Emotional roller coaster.
If you want to hear more history tidbits, you can find us wherever you listen to podcasts. Please rate, review, and subscribe so that other history buffs can find us too.
If you want to know what sources we use, please go to our SoundCloud page. The link is in the description.
Today's homework is to support your local youth strike.